Joining me now is Amanda Chase, state senator, Chesterfield, running for governor. Had her big announcement yesterday. She's all over the national news. Salem had her on today. She was on Fox. Amanda, welcome.
Hey, Don. Good morning. Good to talk to you this morning.
I would put your gubernatorial announcement and your rollout as a 10. The timing was perfect. It was on the heels of, or just after, one of the major gun grab bills went down in the Senate, the ban on assault weapons, magazines, etc., bump stocks, that went down. And I thought your announcement was flawless, and you got on all the major national news stations as well as in Virginia. I don't think your announcement yesterday could have went any better.
Well, listen, I greatly appreciate it. And, I learned from the best you, right?
Thank you. Yes. You did.
Yeah, yesterday was an exciting day. And, just really kudos to all the people that showed up yesterday to fight House Bill 961. Everyone was calling Senator Edwards. We had a targeted campaign, grassroots campaign, that we launched from my Senator Amanda Chase page, asking folks to call her, Joe Morrissey, Senator Morrissey, Senator Deeds, Senator Edwards, many of those who typically do support gun rights. And so kudos to the people for following through. Senator Edwards, who's the chairman of the Senate Judicial Committee, saw me on the front row, actually sitting next to Delegate Mark Levine, who is a friend, by the way, on the Transparency Caucus. We can focus on transparency. That's one thing that we can focus on, that we agree on. But Senator Edwards came to me ahead of that meeting. He said, Senator Chase, I just want to assure you, this bill is going to pass by for the year. So, call off the dogs. So, I'm all about the grassroots. I'm for the people. I'm just a grassroots candidate, and I'm here for the people. I'm not here for a party or a caucus. You guys know that. I'm a Republican. I've always been a Republican, and you can look at my voting record and see that. But they like to try to put you under their thumb. And yesterday was no mistake that Madam Clerk had the door locked where we were going to actually have the press conference in the old Senate chamber. Same clerk-style treatment that my office has received, because they think that they're in control of everything instead of the people. The Capitol belongs to the people. Mm-hmm. Not owned by the Senate. And it's unfortunate what they tried to do, but the people prevailed, and it ended up being even better. We were able to go outside on the front steps of the Capitol and had a tremendous, you can see from the pictures, we had all the major networks that were there. Really, it gave us more space for all the people, and we had no idea that many people would show up. We were honestly just blown away by the level of support, and I'm just humbled beyond words, and I'm gonna win this. I have a lot of determination, a lot of grit. I've been through a lot of adversity and come out on the other side, and people see that. Especially after last year's campaign, and we came out 10 points ahead. So I'm in it to win it. We're going to do this.
So, Amanda, let me ask you this. Mark Obenshain, one of your colleagues, came out yesterday on the heels of your announcement with a blistering statement. I want you to respond to this.
Yeah, listen.
I gotta read it. You have to respond to this. This is one of your colleagues in the Senate. Today, Mark Obenshain issued the following statement in response to Senator Chase's announcement to her candidacy for Virginia governor. And he put this out on Facebook, and he did a press release, which was kind of shocking to me. He said, quote, Amanda just doesn't have a level of substance, maturity, or seriousness that Virginians expect in a gubernatorial candidate. Why would Obenshain put that kind of statement out on the day you announce?
Well, let me just give you a little history lesson. So Mark Obenshain supported my predecessor, and, I challenged a 27-year incumbent whenever I first ran for office, and he was Senator Obenshain's best friend in the Senate. So I get that. Then you look at Senator Obenshain ran for statewide office, and he lost. So, and then now he's pushing for taxes and tolls on 81. I really do like Senator Obenshain. I think he's very articulate on the floor, typically votes the right way. And as a fellow Hokie, I would say, we need to stop as fellow Republicans trying to eat our own. I get that your buddy lost last time, and, Trump was not very well received by a lot of the establishment politicos. That's the same treatment I've had for the past 12 years. And I continue to win, and they scratch their heads, and it's because, I'm here for the people. I'm not going to be under the thumb of a caucus. He's part of that leadership that I called out when I left the caucus. There were 4 of them in leadership. It was Stanley, Obenshain, Ryan McDougal, and Senator Newman, and who I have great respect for. But, when I texted them ahead of that meeting where we were meeting as a Senate caucus and voting on our leadership, when I told them that I could no longer support Tommy Norment as the leader of that caucus because he had actually put forward legislation last go-around in the special session to restrict gun rights, we're in the battle of our lives for the Second Amendment. I'm not going to go to war with leadership that's compromising on the Second Amendment. Not going to do it. And they ignored my text. That's not good leadership. If Senator Obenshain wants to lead, he should lead. He's had that opportunity, and he didn't do it. So I'm not going to follow a parked bus. So there you have it.
We're with Amanda Chase, state senator, Republican from Chesterfield, 2-termer. She's also just announced her campaign for governor 2021. Amanda, is the nomination process going to be decided via convention or primary, and when is that decision going to be made if it hasn't been?
Well, that will be coming forward. I'm not sure. I've done both. Back in 2009, I was instrumental in Cuccinelli's statewide attorney general's race, bringing over 400 delegates from Chesterfield, determining basically the outcome of that election. I'm very familiar with conventions. I understand how they worked. I've run a number of candidates in conventions. I know how they work. They're typically controlled by the consultants. So I'm not a big fan of consultants. I'm not a big fan of consultants either, but I'm not a big fan of conventions because we have seen, and you have seen, how shenanigans take place that disenfranchise the grassroots.
Oh, yeah, that's all they do. Yeah.
And they disenfranchise our veterans.
Totally. It's all they do. Look, once you get a convention, they have a bunch of consultants that make their money on cheating and stealing, disenfranchising, and manipulating conventions. That's how they make their money. And it happens in every single one of them. That's why I detest them. I think they should be outlawed. I think if you can't win a primary, why the hell are you running? If you can't win a general primary, and don't be telling me about crossovers and all this stuff. Every single poll in America shows that about 1% of either party crosses over. The Operation Chaos that Limbaugh tried to do in 2008, that blew up. People just don't do it. So it's a bunch of nonsense. All right.
So here's what I would tell you.
So how do you win the nomination?
If it's a primary and it's a Republican primary, I'll go for it. If they go to a convention, I'll run as an independent. I don't trust, the shenanigans that go on and I'm not calling out in particular people, but I'm going to run fully.
So that was my next question, because what you said yesterday is you said, if I don't get the nomination, I'll run as an independent. And, of course, you can't do that. But what you're saying is if it's a primary, you'll run in the Republican primary. And if you win, you're the nominee. And if you lose, then it is what it is. You go back to being a state senator. Right. But you're saying if they choose a nominating convention, which a lot of people said, okay, if it's a convention, Amanda wins but what you're saying is no, because it'll be manipulated. And so you're saying if they choose a convention, you'll run for governor as an independent.
I'm very seriously considering it. I haven't, I'm going to talk to the powers that be, so to speak, but I'm just sending them a message. I'm not going to be messed with. I've watched them behind the scenes for over a decade. I know what kind of shenanigans can be pulled. I'm aware of it going into it wide-eyed. I will play by a fair process, but the second that I sense shenanigans, then I go as an independent. They can split the vote. I'm the first one to file that's a Republican running for governor. And so, what they do is up to them. They'll be splitting the vote.
All right, so this is fascinating to me. So you want a primary?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important that our veterans be able to vote, and not all veterans, especially overseas, are able to participate in our primary process. I think conventions produce extreme candidates that have a difficult time getting elected. I think primaries give people more of an opportunity to participate because they're spending about 30 minutes going to their local polling location voting instead of having to spend a whole day at a Richmond Convention Center where, by the way, they usually run out of coffee. It's like being on the Titanic, and it's awful. I mean, I've been to numerous statewide conventions since 2008, and it's the same old, same old. It's the party elite trying to manipulate the grassroots and strong-arming them and to pick the candidates that they want. I won't sit under that.
I have to tell you, Amanda, as a populist running, that is a brilliant political position to take. I just have to tell you that. I fully expected you to be endorsing a convention because the traditional thinking is that at a convention with somebody like yourself without a history of raising money, you're not a very good fundraiser based on your record. That's not your strong. So one would say that you would covet a convention where the extremists come out, the conservatives come out, and then you could kind of do an E.W. Jackson, right, in 2013. If the 2013 lieutenant governor's race was a primary, Jackson would have gotten 5%, like he always does. And he's a friend of mine. I'm just giving you reality. It doesn't have anything to do with EW. So he'd have gotten 5 or 8%. Instead, he ends up as the lieutenant governor candidate at the convention. So you're basically defying that. You're flipping it over and saying you want a primary where everybody can come in and decide. And it's open.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. That is definitely consistent with a more empowering people and populist view, and I've got to tell you, I commend you for that because I think convention should be outlawed for federal races, statewide races. I think it has destroyed. If you really look at if you go back to the embryo of the destruction of the Republican Party in Virginia, you can trace it right back to its genesis, which is these conventions, which has torn at the soul of the party. It's hand-to-hand combat. Everybody comes out of them pissed off. There's no unification, and you end up nominating candidates that can't win in November. And it's gone on and on and on. And so I applaud your effort to do this. Okay, couple more minutes. Let's get to some of the issues here as we go forward that you're going to be running on. You mentioned Obenshain for tolls or taxes on I-81. If you're in Southwest Virginia, I-81 is a big issue. We can't seem to figure out a way to fix that road like we have in Southeast Virginia with 64 and 95, which is now, it's been phenomenal what they've done. And we've had taxes and tolls, and I'm happy with it because I can get to Washington, D.C. now. It's already shaved an hour and a half off. What do you do for 81? If you're governor, how do you get the funding to widen it?
Well, we're going to roll out our policy positions, coming up in the weeks ahead. But I will tell you this on transportation. We need a lockbox on any funds that are dedicated to transportation. It continues to get raided time and time again, and there's been an effort year after year that's failed to get that lockbox on those funds. We need to look at federal grants from the Trump administration. They've mentioned that many times, bringing that money here to Virginia. We need to also look at building that into our budget, our regular budget, and so we're not always having to grapple with it. I know we're looking at, they've raised the gas tax to offset the efficiencies of modern day cars. We've got a loss of revenues there. I get that. I'm not going to come up with policy decisions here on the phone right now. I'm going to have a well thought out plan moving forward. Yesterday was simply an announcement to let people know I'm in it to win it. I'm going to surround myself with policy experts who have done this before. I've got a degree in finance. I've worked at the Federal Reserve. I've worked in executive positions running major organizations like Virginia Student Assistance Authorities and others. And I know the best way to be a good governor is to surround myself with the policy experts. I'm not going to be a policy expert on everything. I'm not going to pretend to be, but I will surround myself with those that are. So there you go.
Okay, so let's get to your state Senate business. Big issue now coming up, casinos in Virginia. I know you're opposed to them in general, but it is going to happen. So now it's a matter of how you manage them. Let's get to Southeast Virginia. The Pamunkey Indian tribe wants one in the Norfolk area. Do you favor that?
Well, I'm going to let the people decide that. I know that there's I don't support in general Virginia balancing its budget using alcohol and casinos. We need to diversify our economy. Let's look at technology. We need cyber jobs. We're so heavily invested with, we had this whole issue with sequestration and being so reliant on the federal government for jobs in Northern Virginia. We've got to diversify our economy, and once again, we're focusing on making Virginia look like Nevada, and I get it. People support that. That's them. That's not me. It just is what it is.
Have you made a decision on who to back for Congress in the 7th district?
I have. I actually have decided who I'm supporting, and at the right time, they're going to do a rollout, and I respect that. So it will be coming soon.
I respect that. Okay, so you're going to wait so you can get the bang out of it, but you have made a decision in the 7th. We'll look forward to seeing who that is. Final question is another state Senate business. The stuff that has come over from the House that you guys are evaluating now, and I know you're not on a lot of the committees, so you'll be on the full vote basically. But the stuff that's coming out of the House, what is the number one thing now that as a state senator you want to stop between now and when it gets to the full floor?
Wow, just one thing?
Give me the big one.
I would say any legislation that would restrict a law-abiding Second Amendment is what I'm going to go after first. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what constituents, the thousands of constituents who are reaching out to me, that's what's on their mind right now, the Second Amendment. I mean, we have people who aren't even registered to vote. Some are Democrats, some are independent, some could care less about politics, but they do care about their guns. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the number one driver, in my opinion, until we get our gun rights fully restored. That's going to be the number one issue. It used to be jobs. It used to be the economy. They don't, and I think that's important, but they're like, no, it's Second Amendment. So I'll be targeting the Second Amendment bills that come through. And I've been working behind the scenes, by the way, in talking to these legislators to try to minimize the effect of some of these gun bills. So we're making it happen.
Will your position on running for governor change if Pete Snyder gets in the race?
Look, I love Pete Snyder. He's a good guy. I mean, he came and, my final days of my campaign and helped me put up some 4x8. Great guy, good business guy. He ran for lieutenant governor, ran a great campaign. It was a convention. He was there with all the lieutenant governor shenanigans when someday we'll have a whole show just for that year. 2012, it's etched into my memory.
Yep.
But, I like to see candidates run for House of Delegates and Senator before they try to run for a statewide office so we can see how they do. That's a great testing ground. When people run for statewide office, I want to see some grit. I want to see a voting record. Like, what have you done? A lot of people can say a lot of things, but one of the things that I've learned is that there are a lot of people that want to be everybody's friend. And if you're going to be a good legislator, you got to be able to make those hard decisions, especially if you're going to work for the people, because there are going to be a lot of things that are pushed as quote-unquote great ideas, and you got to be able to have the guts to push back on that and not always go along to get along.
If he gets in, can you beat him in a primary?
I will.
That's going to be the final word. Amanda Chase, running for governor, Republican. She has a base. And shocking to me, on the air, she calls for a primary. Unbelievable. Your political instincts are really good, Amanda. And I hate conventions, so I'm with you on that. John Fredericks Radio Network, Amanda Chase, running for governor. Do you have a website, Amanda? What is it?
Well, it's still chaseforsenate.com. Everybody can go there. I would encourage everybody to go to my Facebook page, Senator Amanda Chase. I do daily videos. In fact, I'm getting ready to do one here shortly, letting people know what's going on in Richmond.
You got it. Senator Amanda Chase, Facebook page. Amanda, thanks for being with us. I know you have another interview coming up. Good luck in your run. And taking the position on a primary and saying that you're going to run as an independent if it's a convention, that takes some big ones. Amanda. John Fredericks Radio Network. Amanda wants a primary and says if it's a convention, she'll run as an independent. Unbelievable. Thanks for being with us, Amanda.